Hello everybody. Today we are going to learn about the type tool and how to do text emerging from a photo and some other things. Let's get started. We're going to make a brand new document and let's use inches, and our standard practice size is 10 inches for the width, 8 inches for the height, 150 DPI or PPI if you're in Photoshop, background white, and create. Okay, first, let's go grab the type tool, the big T. Okay, once you click on the T, you can choose your font. So you can drop down the font menu and you can see a little preview of the different fonts. You can change, is it usually regular or bold? You can change the size, the color. Right now my color is black. How about I'll change the color? So now that color swatch is blue. You can change if it's left justified, centered, or right justified. Later we'll talk about warp. All right, to begin with that type tool, I'm just going to click to set my cursor on the artboard, and I'm going to start typing. For this practice assignment, you're going to be using your name. So that's 24 pixels, looks pretty small. With the type tool, I'm going to go ahead and just highlight the text, drop down my size and increase. In Photoshop, you can actually choose the point size or type in the point size. I get my move tool and I can move it around. I can also free transform, edit, free transform, and I can make it bigger or smaller. I can flip it upside down. If you do not want to distort in Photopea, you need to hold Shift and drag the corner. So holding Shift will maintain the proportions. If I'm not holding Shift, then I can distort in multiple ways. I can also hover on the corner and rotate it. All right, I can go back to the type tool and I can highlight and change the color. So I'm going to go back to the color swatch, change the color. Okay, next I can add some layer styles. Let's go to layer, layer style, blending options. And let's take a look when you click on these. So if I click on bevel and emboss, then it looks like it's kind of emerging from the photo in a way that you could run your fingers over it and feel it. They used to do this with stationery and cards. So I can increase or decrease the depth and the size of that bevel. I can soften the bevel. Right now it's on inner bevel. I can change it to outer bevel. Emboss. Pillow emboss. I'm going to uncheck that and I'm going to choose stroke instead. Stroke means to put an outline around it, and you can increase or decrease that. All right, you can also change the stroke color. You can decrease the opacity of it or increase it. All right, I could give it an inner shadow and make it look like it's engraved with an inner shadow. And I can change the settings like increase or decrease the opacity or increase or decrease the shadow. So that's good. Now you can see it looks like it's kind of engraved in there. All right, I can give it an inner glow. You can play around with giving it a glow. Right now the glow is yellow. You can't really see it. Let's change it. If I change it to red, maybe you can see it. And I'm going to put my blend mode on normal. There it is. Now I can see that inner red glow, or increase the size of it. There it is. I'm going to uncheck that inner glow. All right, I could give it a color overlay. So right now it's got a red overlay. Could change that. There's a green overlay. Or how about a gradient overlay? Right now it's on a default gradient, black to gray to white. I could drop that down and choose some other gradients. Photoshop has a bunch of default gradients. Looks like Photopea. You'll have to create your own. So if I click, really what I would do is set up my foreground and background swatches. So let's say I want a blue to orange gradient. I'll set those up in my foreground and background. So there's blue and orange. And I could go back to layer style, gradient overlay. And I'll drop this down and I could choose foreground to background right there. There's my blue to orange. Here's some other defaults like blue to white. There's that black to white and some other default gradients. Rainbows. All right, you can also change the angle of the gradient. So right now it says it's at a 90-degree angle, but see if I shift around, then my gradient goes in a different direction. It's also a linear gradient right now going from left to right. You could change it to a radial gradient. Or your other ones are called angle. That makes it seem like there's a hard angle on the object. Normally wouldn't use that for text. Same thing with reflected and diamond. All right, notice that when I have this overlay, it kind of got rid of the inner shadow. Let's go back to layer style blending options. And any of the ones that you check are going to show up with their default. Remember to click the name of it if you want to see the edits that you can make. So I'm going to turn off the gradient, and now you can see that there's a pattern overlay, and we've got some default patterns in here. Later you'll see that you can load patterns as we move on with our projects, you'll see. But here's some default patterns that I could add as an overlay. All right, I could also have a drop shadow. Right now I'm clicking on drop shadow, clicked on the words drop shadow, and now I can play around with the drop shadow. Do I want it closer or farther away? Notice that it looks like it's floating the farther away it gets. The spread makes it kind of spread out all around equally, or increase the size. Notice that higher you make the size, the kind of more blurry or feathered out it becomes. All right, you can add multiples, you just have to make sure they work together. So for instance, I have the drop shadow. How about I'll give it that gradient overlay, and how about the bevel and emboss? Okay, and then I can still move it around, and you can see here in Photoshop you're going to have a little FX that tells you what are the layer styles you put on there, and in Photopea you have an EF. and you can drop that arrow down and you can see here's all the things I added to it. And you can turn on and off the eyeballs right here and see if you like it better without or with. Okay, move on to your next type video.